The beginning phase of building a habit, a budgeting habit, is the hardest part. Maybe you've tried this before and you just couldn't stick with that budgeting habit. And maybe you're saying, I'm ready to give it a go. I am ready to finally reach and work toward my money goals. And that's why you clicked on this video. Today is where things change for you because I am breaking down 6 science-backed strategies for building a budgeting habit. When I was in my 20s, my husband and I had $140,000 in student loan debt. We paid this off in our 20s and we became millionaires in our 30s. This wasn't just based on willpower and motivation alone. These were based on applying psychology-backed habits to our budgeting. And that is what unlocked that habit. That is what allowed us to pay off that debt and really build our wealth. And these are the same habits that you can apply too. Forming good money habits will get you out of debt. It will help you reach your money goals. Yes, it will do those things, but it will also change your life in ways that you can't even imagine. There are so many more options available when you do not have money holding you back from pursuing your purpose in life. So let's dive into what really works. Hi friend, welcome back. My name's Heather. If you're new here, I help people break free from financial roadblocks to live with freedom and purpose. If that's something you're interested in doing, subscribe and stick around. And if you want more from me than just my YouTube videos, I have a free budget planner that I use to get out of 6-figure debt in my 20s and become a millionaire in my 30s. It's linked in the description below. This is video 3 of a 6-part series on money mindset. So I have been applying positive money habits to my finances for over 15 years. These are just ingrained in my everyday living. And this is coming from someone who was buying new cars and designer clothes when I was in massive debt. So what changed? I figured out the problem was not my discipline or motivation, it was my approach. And when I started applying the research, which are no surprise, also biblical truths, when I applied those new approaches to my life, that's when everything shifted. So let's talk about the 6 science-backed strategies to build positive money habits, to get out of debt, to reach your money goals, and to have it stick over the long term for you too. So one of the myths that we need to break right away, right now, is that the truth is you're not gonna have the motivation to make those good money choices and stick with a budget all the time. Maybe you'll get a little burst in the beginning, sure, but you're not gonna have the motivation to build those compounding positive habits. If you're not sure what that is, check out this video on tiny habits. And it really sucks when you've been working for a few months on paying down that debt, maybe it's credit card debt, but the progress feels small, it doesn't really feel like you're making a big dent, and so you stop. All of a sudden, there's no motivation. That excitement that you had in the beginning, it fades and all that motivation just goes right out the window. So how do you fix it? Let's break down how real behavior psychology works. Most motivation does not just come out of thin air. Motivation is a result from something else. Most people think that it's motivation that then leads to action, that then leads to momentum. But 99% of the time, those two are actually a switch. It's action that leads to motivation, that leads to momentum. And then that momentum then leads to more action, more motivation, more momentum. And that's the loop, right? James Clear calls this the science of motivation. This is where doing something creates more energy that creates more motivation. And sure, we can create motivation from a few other ways as well. We could get that from watching an inspiring video. We could get that from seeing our progress, which reinforces wanting to continue. But here's the thing, that stuff is not reliable for creating consistent motivation. Reliable motivation comes from action. We so often want to feel a certain way to show up a certain way, but the reality is that we need to show up in order to feel that way. So put more plainly, you don't need to feel like it to do it, but you need to do it to feel like that. Think about it. Even doing something small, like making your lunch at home the night before, is something that will create inertia, so that way you don't buy your lunch when you're out because you've done that small little thing the night before. It creates the momentum to stop buying lunch out and to make something healthy that you truly enjoy from home. Or like if you say, I'm gonna quickly log my spending for the day. Once you do this, most people start getting into what they're doing. So after you've logged that spending for the day, you may have that desire to actually read over and see what you've spent so far in the month. Just doing that gives you the desire to keep going. So your goal is not to wait until you feel ready. Your goal is not to muster up motivation to feel ready to start taking that action. Your goal is to make it as easy as possible for you to take that action so that you can build that momentum. So pretty much most of what we're talking about in this video is going to be about how it can be easier for you to take that action so that you can have momentum created and working for you on your side. We're going to work on creating that momentum loop, and we're going to get you building wealth. So number 2 is to make it ridiculously easy to start. And here's what I mean. If you want to be healthier and save money by making your meals at home on weekdays, then make it ridiculously easy for you to do that. Then make them the night before. And here's what I'm talking about. BJ Fogg's behavior model, and stay with me here, this is a formula that shows you how to make a behavior change. This formula is behavior equals motivation plus ability plus prompt. So we're going to talk about how do we create those things in the equation so we can change the behavior for the long term. So when you want to change your behavior, those are the 3 things that you need to do to change it. So in that equation, motivation is there. When motivation is really low, that means you need to make sure ability and prompt are very high. So what does it mean to make ability really high? It means removing as many obstacles as possible. So instead of guessing at whether you can make a purchase, you've already been tracking your spending and you know whether you can afford that purchase or not. Instead of having to rush to make your lunch in the morning before work, you already did your grocery shopping for the week, you already prepped your lunch the night before, and all you need to do is grab it and go. Instead of grabbing takeout on the way home from work, you've already planned your dinners for the week, you know what you're making, the decision has been made for you. No thinking, all you have to do is just show up and open your fridge. So for you specifically in this formula, what is gonna make your ability super high when it comes to budgeting? So one of the biggest hidden barriers of making your ability really low is decision fatigue. Research shows that every single decision that you make, whether you're gonna buy that skincare product that you just saw an influencer rave about, whether you're gonna grab that latte on the way home, these decisions drain you. And these little things add up. They make the task much harder. Your brain is wired to take the path of least resistance. So what usually happens is you end up spending the money and you go over on your budget. The fewer choices that you have to make, the more likely that you will follow through. The fewer choices that you have, the higher your ability goes. So I want you to come up with some money rules for yourself. Now, these are not money rules that are meant to make you feel restricted. These are money rules that are self-loving and care. These are money rules that are gonna help you reach that freedom and purpose that you are desiring. These money rules do not take away from your life or happiness. They build up your life and happiness. So here are the money rules that I have for myself. These are loving. These are not taxing. They build me up and they take away that decision fatigue. This is a form of self-care. Now, your goals might look different than mine. Your money rules might look different than mine. So this is just an example. Make sure that when you create yours, they align with your goals and your values. First, I use my credit card to improve my credit score. I do not use it for irresponsible spending. So this means whatever I put on my credit card, I know that I'm going to be able to pay off in full. 2, I track every expense. And this really helps me know what my spending habits are and plan for things. So for example, I know that April is an expensive month for me because both of my kids have birthdays that month and we do gifts and birthday parties. I know that July is an expensive month for me because my husband and I celebrate our anniversary and we usually do a family vacation. I know that August is an expensive month for me because we're doing a lot of sports signups, registration fees. I know that my budget needs to shift and fluctuate these spending rhythms that I have in my life so I can make up for it on different months. This allows me to plan for the things that are important to me that I want to prioritize spending on. 3, I do not spend my investments that are passively working for me and building wealth. So this is like my stock portfolio. I leave everything in there. I also do not touch my emergency fund. These are investments that I've set aside for myself to grow. And in the emergency fund, I don't let it just sit in a savings account because we know that it can't grow in a savings account. What I do is I invest that in short-term treasury bonds that mature very quickly, so they are fairly liquid. 4, we eat dinner out once per week, and the rest of the week we eat at home. We have exceptions for this for like special occasions or, when we're on vacation, so it's not 100% of the rule, but this guides us to make really healthy choices with our eating, and it saves us a lot of money. 5, when we're ready to replace our car, we do not buy a brand new car. We buy a car that is about 2 to 3 years old because it has already depreciated a little bit coming off the lot. So these are my 5 money rules. I want you to think about and come up with what your money rules are so that you can take that decision fatigue away from you and increase that ability that is going to help you with that behavior change. So the next part of the formula, besides the ability, was the prompt. So with the prompt, You want to make a cue that is going to give you that prompt. So maybe one of your good financial habits that you want to build is paying your credit card on time and avoiding those late fees. So what do? You schedule that in your Google Calendar so you can get that reminder. And in the same way that you track your spending with a budget, go ahead and schedule that time for you in your calendar so you get that calendar cue that it's time for you to track your spending. This little cue says to you in a very easy nudge, hey, it's time for you to pay that credit card, or hey, it's time for you to track that spending. And when you do this, it helps make the action as easy as possible. And remember, that is the goal. The goal is to do these things to make the action easier. Because the hardest part about building these healthy money habits is not about actually doing it. It is that split-second decision about whether or not you're going to do it. One of the biggest barriers for me, which made my ability very low, was that I didn't know how to build a budget. I didn't know how to create a budget that aligned with my goals, how to set it up, how to track. I struggled to be consistent with good money habits because I didn't have a plan and I didn't have those money rules. And without that plan and those money rules, I really struggled to be consistent, and it was because it was so much harder to execute. I didn't have a clear plan, I didn't know what to do. So I built a budget template that I ended up using to pay off 6 figures of debt and become a millionaire. I've been using this template for the last 15 years because it's flexible enough to work across a lot of different financial situations. And once I started using this budget, I became really consistent with working toward my goals. And according to Fogg's behavior model, what that budget did is it made my ability really high. So if you're not really sure how to create a budget, or you have a budget that isn't really working for you, I really suggest downloading my free budget template that's in the description below. The budget planner is going to help you categorize your spending into needs, wants, and saves, and it's going to help you create goals in each of those categories. It will also give you a rolled up view so you can see how you're tracking against your goals in each of those categories. Using this template, you don't have to waste time wondering whether you should make a purchase or shaming yourself for a purchase that you already made. That's one less barrier between you and getting started. This really helped me eliminate my decision fatigue and increase my ability. My budget really kept the ball rolling for me and increased that ability. I used to waste so much time and energy making the same mistakes over and over again, but the budget really got the ball rolling and out of that stuck state. It doesn't matter what financial decisions you've made up until this point. It does matter what decisions you make from here on out. You'll always have the power to choose what decisions you'll make now and in the future. So if you want to reach your money goals and you are ready to commit to reaching your goals, then download my budget planner now and get started budgeting. So the whole point is that the harder that you make it to build your money habits is the less likely that you are to actually do it, right? Common sense. But without action, there's no perpetual motivation and momentum that builds to keep it going. So when you don't have motivation, you need to make that ability very high. Now, you want to know what else makes you fall off your habits when no one is watching? Here's the thing about psychology. We have this deep need to follow through on the commitments that we've made, especially when we know that someone knows about them. If you tell somebody that you're going to do something, your brain will literally experience cognitive dissonance if you don't do that thing. And our brains do not like cognitive dissonance. It's really uncomfortable for us, so it actually pushes us to complete it. There was a study done by the American Society of Training and Development that found that people who simply told someone else, like a friend, a partner, a coworker, just somebody else, it didn't matter who, telling this person about your goal, the simple act of doing that actually increased the chances of you following through on it by 65%. But you know, like when they actually scheduled a check-in with this person, like, hey, I'm gonna text you and check in on you, the odds increase from 65% to 99%. That is massive, and that is powerful. This is called the social facilitation effect in psychology. It basically says that we perform better and more reliably when we know that someone is indirectly watching us. It's interesting to know that when you're operating under pressure, when you know that somebody is observing you very closely and you're doing something that you're not very good at, like say you're playing a tennis match and you're not very good at tennis, you're more likely to do worse. But when we know we're being observed on something that's simple to do, like a habit, we're actually more likely to do it. Just knowing that someone will notice if you skip a tracking or you miss your budget or you don't follow one of your money rules, just knowing that someone will notice that completely increases the likelihood that you'll follow through. It did for me, and you know why? Because I never missed on tracking my spending. And this is something my husband and I had actually done together. We have our own individual spending budgets, and we don't like track what we're spending on an individual itemized level, but we do know that each other are tracking and staying on our budget, and that indirect accountability to each other to know that we are going to stay within our own spending limits, but we have the freedom to spend on whatever we kind of want within those limits has really held me accountable, and it's held him accountable in a really healthy way. Obviously, having my husband as an accountability partner and me as his is a really obvious thing to do. But if you don't have that, you can select a friend, maybe somebody else who also has debt that they want to pay off or money goals that they want to reach, and you can really impact each other in a positive, healthy way in holding each other accountability, just kind of like you would with a workout buddy. And the great thing about it is, like, you learn what your friend's money goals are and what your rules are. And you're not going to pressure your friend to do this big, extravagant thing that's going to cost a lot of money when you know it's not in line with their money rules, because you want to be a good friend. And they're not going to do that to you either. So you really help each other stay on track. Or even if you go on social media and you post about your debt payoff, even just doing that publicly is going to help hold you accountable. And I see a lot of people posting on social media about paying off debt, and I've seen a lot of people be really successful in using that as a motivating accountability path. If you decide to yourself that you really want to reach your money goals, you really want to commit to tracking your spending and staying on a budget, you really want to commit to putting in the effort to get there, then get yourself an accountability partner to help you follow through on that commitment. Research shows this time and time again, because honestly, it just hurts more to be that person that doesn't follow through than to just show up and track your spending. Now, number 4, here is something really interesting that science shows, that perfectionism is a trap. The research shows that perfectionisms lead to avoidance and inconsistencies, right? Because what do you do once you feel that you're behind? Well, you quit, right? There's nothing that keeps us going more than when we feel like we're winning. And there's nothing that wants to make us quit more than when we feel like we're doing a bad job or we're failing, we want to quit. Perfectionism is not making you better, it's making you inconsistent. It's making you feel like a failure, which is making you want to quit. This is where most people sabotage their progress, right? They overspend one month, they completely break their budget that month, they feel like a failure, and so they quit, right? Or they run into some unexpected big expense and they think to themselves, I'm just gonna be in debt forever, I'm bad with money, what is the point? If you're anticipating perfection every single day, you will feel like a failure. And when you feel like a failure, you will start acting like one. So the point is that you need to accept and acknowledge that you are gonna make some money mistakes from time to time. You might not hit your budget every single time, or you may miss your spending tracking for a week, okay? This is not about being perfect, this is about being consistent to reach your goals. So sometimes we get stressed at work. Sometimes we get a terrible night's sleep and it just totally throws us off. Sometimes we fall into these dips and we miss tracking spending for the week. Or we are so tired we didn't make our lunches and we ate out every single day that week. You are supposed to have ups and downs. That doesn't make you lazy or less capable. You're supposed to have shifts in your energy. Life is not flat, and that is normal. Be gentle with yourself. If you're in a busy season of work, scale back a little bit. Let yourself enjoy that latte after work. Grab that dinner out. Just even it out in your budget during a less stressful period. Adjust to what you need, not some arbitrary standard of what you've decided is perfect. Because all that arbitrary standard of perfect will make you do is feel like a failure. And once you feel like a failure, you'll start acting like one. Now, let's be more specific. If you want to reach your money goals, here's what the science says. New habit formation is not based on the intensity, it is based on the frequency. Science shows that habit formation does not depend on how intense each effort is. Instead, it depends on the repetition in a consistent context. In other words, if you want to start focusing on budgeting consistently, focus on the frequency in which you do that and not the intensity in which you do that. Intensity is actually not important when it comes to habit formation. It's all about consistency, meaning it is much more effective to set a budget that allows you to enjoy life and the journey toward reaching your money goals than to set a really tight, restrictive budget that would get you to your goals sooner, but may take away from the enjoyment that you have in that journey and process. James Clear calls this casting your votes. Every time you show up consistently tracking your spending, what you're saying to yourself is, hey, I'm good with money. And this is the problem that a lot of people have when they're just starting out with new habits, myself included. I did this over and over again in my early days. I set this really restrictive budget because my mindset was like, well, if I didn't make these big gains, then what's the point? And that's how I used to think about it, and it would completely drain me having this super restrictive budget. The intensity doesn't mean that you're better than anyone else at creating this new habit. And we already know where that perfectionism mindset leads to. It leads to quitting. Building a habit, any habit, requires consistency, not intensity. And once I started focusing on consistency and not intensity, everything changed. That's when my debt started getting smaller and my savings started getting bigger. And budgeting was just part of my normal everyday life. What you are doing is building your financial endurance. Just like when you're working out consistently, you're building that physical endurance. When you're budgeting consistently, you're building that financial endurance. And that is what you need to build wealth. And once you start doing this and building this consistency, it just becomes part of your life. And that is what you want. That's when you start to see real change in your bank account. Because how you show up with your money day in and day out, you're not forcing yourself to, that's just what you do. One of my favorite parts of my budget planner is that a single view tracks how you're doing for the whole year. So like how many months in a row have you kept your word to track your spending? And because I never missed a month of spending, it brought me massive results. I went from 6 figures of debt to a millionaire, and I've enjoyed the journey along the way. I love that feeling of consistency and the progress that it brings. I love that the planner focuses more on consistency than intensity. I personally haven't seen any get-rich schemes available to the masses, but consistency is available to you. It's available to me. It's available to anyone who wants it, and it does work. Did I start saving 6 figures annually? No. I started small based on my unique financial situation and what made sense for me and my situation. When I was starting off, my situation was I had 6 figures of debt and I had an entry-level income. I picked a loan that had the highest interest rate, and I started paying more than the minimum on that one single loan. And I opened a 401k and started making really small contributions. That was it. That was all that I did when I started. I started small. And I'm in a much different place with my income now, but all of my habits are the same. And I can do bigger things now, and my money works for me, growing in my passive investments. So if you're just getting started, start small and be consistent in this small way. Once you've mastered that, challenge yourself a bit more. Based on what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve, see what is the next step to challenge you in developing those habits. But remember that doing something small and consistency is what leads to those big gains. And having a few ultra restrictive months are not going to do as much as the small, consistent ones. Remember, it's the consistency that matters, not the intensity. If you think that 1 month of intensity is going to get you closer to your money goals, it's not. It may do something, but it's not going to get you to your goals, and it is going to feel painful in the process. You need to completely shift your mindset from how hard can I go to how consistently can I show up. Now, lastly, let's talk about the neuroscience of habit formation. Every habit, including budgeting, follows what researchers call a habit loop, a 3-step neurological pattern that your brain uses to encode behaviors. Here's how the loop works. You've got a cue, action, and reward. And it's a loop. The action is your trigger, right? That's like getting your Google Calendar alarm to remember to pay your credit card or to track your spending. The action is obvious. That's the action, which is tracking your spending. And the reward is what your brain gets from completing the action. This is what makes your brain want to complete the loop. Here's why most people start and stop budgeting and they can't stick to it. The things we want from budgeting are more time, more freedom, more money to buy the things that we want. Those things don't actually come for at least 6 months and more likely years. But our brain needs immediate rewards to stick to a habit, right? To close out that loop. And that's why building the habit of budgeting is particularly hard to be consistent with and stick to it. Especially in the beginning, because in the beginning there is no reward. Let's be real. Why is this reward so important? Well, our brains like immediate gratification. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter that drives motivation and encourages behavior, gets released when we have immediate gratification. And that's why people become addicted to shopping. It's that quick, immediate dopamine hit. When the signal is weaker and the rewards are further away, that dopamine is less. Okay, so that means you need to hack the system to build in immediate rewards, especially in the beginning before those long-term rewards are even there yet. So what might that be? A celebration song that you only get to listen to after you've tracked your spending for the week? Checking off your budgeting to-do in your planner with your cute little pen or off the list that you have? Or just tracking how many months you consistently budgeted? Taking a cute picture of yourself with your latte that you treated yourself with? Whatever works, whatever makes the experience good for you. So maybe it's something right after you pack your lunch the night before, or something right after you're budgeting. You're strengthening that neural connection that is increasing that habit and closing the loop so that you keep doing it. So pick up one or several of these rewards. You get to pick to them and commit to it. Your brain needs to learn that budgeting is immediate good feelings. And once it starts feeling that connection and that feeling, it starts becoming more automatic. And then once you start doing this for 6 months or more, you'll start seeing the real rewards coming in your money goals as you're starting to see the progress. And as you're seeing the progress, you won't need those immediate rewards as much because the real rewards of what you're actually working to will start showing up. But until those long-term rewards start showing up, you need to build in the immediate rewards that create that habit for you. And by the way, once you apply these strategies and you build this budgeting habit, you'll be able to build other habits in other areas of your life much more easily because you're building that endurance and the skill set to do that. It's just like working out, you're building that muscle and getting stronger. And in the case of habits, you're building that muscle to form new habits. But in the beginning, those little rewards, they bridge the gap of where you are and where you want to be. So these are the 6 science-backed strategies that actually work. And these also are biblical truths as well, but we'll leave that for a different video. Motivation comes from action. Lower your barrier to entry and make your ability high. Get accountability, drop perfectionism. It's making you a quitter. Focus on consistency over intensity. And lastly, build in immediate rewards. The thing about my budget planner is that it literally incorporates all of these things for you to make building that habit as easy as possible. It removes that barrier of having that plan that you need. It gives that built-in accountability if you are sharing it with a partner. It prevents perfectionism by building in a way to customize it to your unique goals and circumstances. It focuses on building consistency with a 1-year view of how you're tracking. And it even gives you that little immediate reward by seeing all that incremental consistency laid out for you on the page. And that's exactly why I've been able to stick with this for over 10 years. It has all of those pieces covered. So don't miss this chance to build the habits that will change your financial future. Click the link below in the description and build your budget. It's completely free. I hope you got value from this video, and I hope it really helped you understand the psychology and the science between habit formation, especially when building your budgeting habit. Now, let's take it a step further. Now, if you really do want to break free from financial roadblocks to live with purpose, peace, freedom, then we also need to make sure you have the mindset shifts that get you there. So in this video here, I'm showing you exactly how to break free from that anxiety, stress that may be holding you back from that financial freedom that you're seeking. Because trust me, if I can stop doing this one thing, then you can too. So I'll see you over there, or I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.